My name is Dorothy Wilson, but most folks just call me Grandma Dot. I'm 73 years old now, born and raised in the coal hills of Pikeville, Kentucky. For the last 40 years, I've lived in Louisville, carrying with me the weight of a story I've never told aloud until now. It's a story that's lived quietly in the corners of my heart, a wound that healed, but never quite stopped aching. I still remember the night everything changed. The sound of shouting, the sting of his hand, the world spinning as I fell. When I woke up 2 days later in a hospital bed, I could barely breathe, my ribs wrapped tight in bandages. My face was so swollen I couldn't even open my eyes. The nurse told me he was gone, run off with the woman next door. The same neighbor who used to wave at me every morning like nothing in the world was wrong. That moment, that betrayal, became the spark that lit the darkest chapter of my life. But before I tell you how I survived, I need to take you back to where it all began. Because my story didn't start with pain. It started with love, simple, ordinary, good love, the kind that makes you believe the world is kind too. Our little house in Pikeville was small but warm. 2 bedrooms, one for my parents, one for me and my 2 sisters. The kitchen smelled of wood smoke and fresh bread, and the radio played Elvis while Mama hummed and twirled in her flowered dress. My childhood sounded like laughter and smelled like coffee and cherry blossoms from our yard. Mama always told me, "Dorothy, when you find a man, make sure he looks at you the way your daddy looks at me." And it was true. Daddy looked at her like she hung the moon. Even after long days underground, covered in coal dust, he'd wrap his arms around her and kiss her forehead like it was the most natural thing in the world. Respect, that's the heart of real love, Daddy used to say whenever he caught me reading romance magazines. Don't you ever settle for less than that. Dot. If only I'd known how right he was. School was a long walk away, but I didn't mind. I dreamed of being a teacher, of holding a piece of chalk in my hand and helping children see the world in words. Daddy, who barely had schooling himself, used to say, "Education's the one thing they can't take from you, my girl." He was proud when I graduated in 1970, first in the family with a diploma. I still remember the tear he tried to hide at my ceremony, thinking no one noticed. I did. Back then, I thought life would be as simple as a good man, a small house, and a garden of my own. I had no idea how far I'd fall, or how much I'd have to climb back up. I thought I knew what love looked like. But that was before I met Gerald Thompson, the man who taught me how dangerous charm can be. I swallowed my pride and did as he said. He was my husband, after all. Wasn't that what a wife was supposed to do? Make her husband happy? We went back to Pikeville and started our new life together. The early months were a blur of learning how to share a home, how to cook for 2, how to balance lesson plans with laundry and cleaning. Gerald kept working at the furniture store, and I stayed at the school. With both salaries, we lived modestly, but comfortably. Then little things began to shift. He'd wrinkle his nose at my cooking. Too salty. He'd frown at my clothes. That skirt's too short for a married woman. And then came the jealousy. Why do you wear lipstick to teach? Who's this John waiting for you after school? John was the 70-year-old janitor. Bless his heart. But to Gerald, every man was a threat. When I found out I was pregnant, I thought everything would change. He held me tight, promised the world, said he'd be the best father alive. For a few weeks, I believed the old Gerald had come back, the sweet, gentle man I'd fallen for. But 3 months later, I lost the baby. The hospital, the pain, the bleeding, it felt like my world stopped spinning. When I came home, Gerald looked at me like I'd broken something precious. "You should have taken better care," he muttered. "You lost my child." That night, I cried in the bathroom with the faucet running so he wouldn't hear me. It was the first time I cried that way, but not the last. If you think that was the breaking point, you'll want to hear what came next. Things were only just beginning to unravel. After the miscarriage, something in him hardened. The kind man I'd married disappeared behind anger and control. The first year of marriage ended nothing like I had dreamed. He picked apart everything I did. My cooking, my words, even how loudly I breathed. "You breathe too hard. How's a man supposed to sleep with that noise?" I found myself shrinking, talking less, smiling less, walking carefully as if every step might set him off. Still, I held on to hope. Maybe it was just a bad phase. Maybe my Gerald would come back. Then came the second pregnancy. I did everything right this time. I rested, ate well, and followed every doctor's order. Gerald seemed hopeful again, even protective. Now it'll work out, he'd say, grinning. But at 5 months, I lost that baby too. This time, the grief crushed me. I had already felt the baby move. Already picked out names. On the way home from the hospital, Gerald's voice sliced through the silence. There's something wrong with you. Normal women don't lose children like this. My mother had 8. The doctor said it's no one's fault. I whispered. It's your fault, he said. Your body's broken. That was the day I snapped. I told him everything I'd been holding back. And then came the slap, hard, shocking, the taste of blood filling my mouth. Don't you ever talk to me like that again, he hissed. I'm your husband. You owe me respect. That night, I thought about leaving. But the shame was heavier than my fear. What would people say? A failed marriage. A barren wife. I stayed. Biggest mistake I ever made. You might think that's as dark as it gets, but the real storm hadn't even hit yet. The 3rd year, everything crumbled. Gerald lost his job at the furniture store after a fight with his boss. Something about missing money. He swore it wasn't his fault, but I saw that flicker in his eyes. The one that meant he was lying. Unemployed, he started drinking more. First a beer at lunch, then a bottle of whiskey that never left his hand. When he drank, the words got sharper. The insults turned to blows. The bruises piled up, and I learned to make excuses. I fell. I hit the cabinet door. Everyone pretended to believe me. It was easier for them that way. My parents started to suspect. My mother once caught me crying in her kitchen. Daughter, if something's wrong, you can come home. I forced a smile. Everything's fine, Mom. It'll pass. But it didn't. It only got worse. That's when Marcia moved in next door, a divorced woman older than me, with perfect hair and perfume that lingered in the air. She was kind. She listened. She brought cookies when I looked tired and whispered the words no one else dared to say. He hits you, doesn't he? You have to get out. I can't, I told her. I have nowhere to go. Yes, you do. The world's bigger than him. Gerald hated her, called her a bad influence, said she was trying to corrupt me. But when I was at work, I didn't know he was the one spending time with her. It started with a matchbox I found in his pocket, from a bar across town. Just checked out a new place, he said, irritated. Then came the strange perfume on his shirt. I bumped into someone on the bus, he snapped. Stop being paranoid. Every sign was there, and still, I refused to see it. Because facing the truth meant admitting I'd built my life on lies. A few months later, he got a new job selling hardware. Less pay, less pride, but enough to keep the lights on. Also I thought, you won't believe what I discovered next, and how it finally pushed me to the edge. I truly believed things were finally turning around. For a few short weeks, they actually did. Henry started drinking less, smiling more. He began taking real care of himself again, shaving before work, showering every morning, even wearing that old bottle of cologne I'd almost forgotten he owned. I thought it was because of the new job. You seem different, I told him one morning. Lighter, happier. He grinned. Maybe life's finally giving us a break. I wanted to believe him. I told myself soon we'd have enough money again, maybe even try for another baby. Another baby. Even after everything, my heart still fluttered at the thought. Foolish hope, the kind that refuses to die no matter how many times it's been beaten down. Rehook. But some hopes are traps disguised as dreams. It was May 15th, 1976, a date carved into my memory like a scar. A grey, rainy Friday. School let out early because a classroom ceiling had started leaking. I came home ahead of schedule, umbrella dripping, shoes squeaking on the wooden floor. That's when I heard it. Laughter. A woman's laughter. From our bedroom. Everything inside me froze. My pulse, my breath, the world itself seemed to stop spinning. I already knew what I would find. But still, I wasn't ready. I eased the door open just a crack, and there they were. Henry and Marcia, tangled in our sheets, in my bed. The same bed where I'd once prayed for better days. I shut the door silently. They never even noticed. I sat in the kitchen, staring at the cracked linoleum floor. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I simply stopped existing for a moment. Half an hour later, the back door creaked. Marcia left quietly, trying not to be seen. Then Henry emerged, still whistling. When he saw me, he froze mid-step. "What are you doing home?" he asked. "They let us out early." "Rain," I said flatly. He glanced at the clock, then at me, and I saw the exact second he realized. I knew. "Did you see something?" His voice was lower now, heavier. I saw everything. I expected shouting, maybe denial. But instead, he laughed. Actually laughed. "And what are you gonna do? Tell someone?" I rose from the chair, knees trembling. "I'm leaving, Henry. It's over." That's when the laughter stopped. His eyes went dark, hard. "You're not going anywhere," he said through clenched teeth. "You're my wife. You leave when I say you can. I'm not something you own. Let me pass." He stepped in front of me, a wall of muscle and rage. When I tried to sidestep, he shoved me back. My shoulder hit the chair. Pain shot up my spine. I said, "You're not going anywhere." I stood again. "You don't get to decide that." That's when the first slap came. Hard. Blinding. "Spying on me now. Think you're clever." Another slap. Sharper. Then a punch. Straight to the stomach. I gasped, folding over, the air ripped from my lungs. He dragged me by the hair across the kitchen tiles. "You want to know why I was with her? Because she's a real woman. Not cold like you." He threw me against the wall. My head hit with a crack that sent sparks across my vision. The blows didn't stop. Fists, kicks, words sharper than any knife. "You can't even give me a child. Worthless." After a while, pain blurred into numbness. The world faded into sound. His grunts, the rain, my heartbeat slowing. When it finally ended, I lay there, face swollen, blood pooling beneath me. He looked down at me, breathing heavily, and spat beside my face. "If you ever try to leave again, I'll kill you. Understand?" I couldn't even nod. He kicked me once more, ribs cracking. I said, "Understand." "I understand," I whispered. He grabbed his keys and left, muttering, "When I get back, dinner better be ready. And fix that face." The door slammed. Silence followed. I don't know how long I lay there. Every breath burned. Every inch of my body screamed. But something deep inside whispered, "If you stay, you die." So I dragged myself toward the phone. Thought about calling my parents. But my father would have killed Henry and ended up in prison. The police. They didn't care about domestic matters back then. So I called the only person I trusted. My sister, Louise. "Louise, please. Henry, he hurt me. Bad." Her voice came quick and frightened. "Stay there. I'm coming." 15 minutes later, Louise and her husband John burst through the door. The look on their faces, I'll never forget it. "Jesus, Mary, and Joseph," John muttered, rushing to lift me. "We're taking you to the hospital." "No, he'll find me there. Please, your house." Louise ran to grab some clothes for me. A minute later, she returned pale as paper. "John," she said quietly, "there's blood on the bed. But it's not hers." My stomach turned. Had Henry hurt Marcia too? Or was it something else entirely? My mind was too foggy to understand. They brought me to their home, small but warm, with 2 wide-eyed children. Aunt Dot fell down the stairs. Louise told them quickly before sending them outside. She cleaned my wounds, pressed ice to my face, whispered as she worked, "How long has this been happening, Dorothy? Why didn't you tell me?" I tried to answer, but the truth caught in my throat, heavier than any bruise. That night, as the rain finally stopped, I realized, survival isn't just staying alive. It's deciding you deserve to. I don't think I'd ever cried like that before, The kind of crying that empties your soul. Between sobs, I let it all out. The torment that began after my first miscarriage, the insults that became my daily soundtrack, and his betrayal with Marcia. "Why didn't you just leave?" my sister asked, holding my shaking hands. "I thought I could fix him, that he'd change," I whispered. From the hallway, John, her husband, spoke softly but firmly. "He won't change, Dorothy. Men who raise their hands to women don't get better. They just learn how to hide it longer." That night, I collapsed at my sister's house, knocked out by exhaustion and the pills the doctor had given me. When morning came, every inch of me ached. My face was swollen, and the mirror barely recognized me. Re-hook, but the reflection wasn't the worst part. It was what I had to face next. Lois convinced me to report him. We went to the police, me hobbling, sunglasses hiding the evidence of his cruelty. The officer barely looked interested. "Do you really want to press charges?" he asked. "Yes. You know he might be arrested." "I know." "Are you sure? You could destroy the man's life." "Destroy his life. What about mine?" But I stayed quiet. I just signed. The medical report was brutal. Multiple bruises, a deep cut needing stitches, cracked ribs, a concussion. The doctor leaned close and said, "If you go back to him, he'll finish what he started." Re-hook. I didn't realize then. Those words would haunt me for weeks. I stayed at Lois's place while police searched for Gerald. 3 days later, they told me he'd vanished, quit his job, emptied our savings, taken his things, and disappeared. John muttered, "Coward. Better gone than near you." But something didn't sit right. Marcia, the neighbor, the friend who became his lover, had vanished too. On the 4th day, Gerald's boss came by. "Sorry to bother you, Mrs. Dorothy," he began nervously. He disappeared without collecting his pay. And Marcia too. But before that, he came to the store, took an advance, and loaded some materials into her car. What kind of materials? Cement, lime, tools, enough for a small project. A chill crawled up my spine. Cement, tools, the bloodstained sheets still fresh in my memory. Re-hook. Something told me Gerald hadn't just run away. Weeks passed. My bruises faded. My parents returned from their trip, horrified by what they saw. "You should have told us, sweetheart," my father said, voice trembling. I was ashamed, I murmured. "Shamed? No, Dorothy. The only shame was that man." Slowly, I began rebuilding. My school granted me leave. I moved back into my childhood room, the walls unchanged, as if waiting for me to heal. For the first time in months, I almost felt safe. Until that June morning, the police came. "Mrs. Dorothy," the officer said carefully, "we found your husband." My blood ran cold. "Where?" "At a property owned by Miss Marcia Gomez. You'll need to come with us." The drive felt endless. When we arrived, police tape fluttered in the wind. Officers digging. Faces grim. "What happened here?" I asked. "Your husband and Miss Gomez had a dispute," the officer said, his voice uneasy. Marcia was buried in a shallow grave behind the house, her body covered in a rough mix of lime and cement. The same materials Gerald had taken. "And Gerald?" I whispered. "He tried to flee, pulled a weapon. There was an exchange." He didn't need to say more. Gerald was gone too. Re-hook. I thought that would be the end of my nightmare. I was wrong. The days blurred, endless statements, gruesome details. The police pieced it together. They'd planned to run away. He'd attacked me, then gone to meet her. Something went wrong. She met the same monster I had, only she didn't survive it. The papers feasted on the tragedy. Crime of passion shocks quiet town. My wedding photo appeared beside images of the property, of body bags. Suddenly, I was the murderer's widow. The scandal whispered in every market, every school corridor. Even my students' parents pulled their children from my class. Eventually, the principal called me in, apologetic but firm. "You understand, Dorothy. The pressure is unbearable." I lost everything. The man I'd married. The job I loved. The version of myself I used to know. For months, I barely moved from bed. My parents tried everything. Doctors, prayers, silence. Nothing worked. I drowned in the question that wouldn't let me go. What if I had left sooner? Maybe Marsha would still be alive. Maybe I'd still have my life. My mother would sit beside me every night, stroking my hair, whispering the same thing. It wasn't your fault, my love. The monster destroyed himself, not you. Final rehook, and maybe, one day, I'll believe her.